Welcome to One More Podcast, where we're having one more conversation about what matters. Whether you're on the treadmill or in the drive-thru, we're really glad you hit play. You can listen to One More Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also watch every episode on YouTube or on Spotify. And hey, if you enjoyed today's conversation, do us a favor, subscribe, leave a quick review, and share this episode with a friend. Seriously, you never know how a simple share might impact one more person. All right, let's jump into today's episode.
All right, well, welcome into the inaugural episode of One More Podcast. We're so glad you're here. This podcast is for you and people just like you, and we're excited to get it started. And, you know, Carter, when we started talking about should we do a podcast, I think one of our initial conversations was, I'm not sure that the world needs another podcast. So I'm not sure it needs one more podcast. Does the world need us on a podcast? And so we were having some of those initial conversations. And then I was reflecting on that conversation afterwards, and I was like, that's actually a pretty good title for a podcast.
There you go. One more podcast.
Yeah.
By the way, we should probably introduce ourselves since it's our first podcast.
Yeah, we should do that.
I'm Carter McInnes.
And I'm Jake Davis.
Yes. And we're not sure the world feels like it needs one more podcast. Everybody's got one. Every pastor's got one. Every church has got one. Every influencer's got one. But I think the world might need one more podcast in an angle that's a little different.
Yeah. We really, we thought that it was worth starting one more podcast that has a heart for one more.
Yeah.
And we just, we realized that there's a lot of voices, a lot of content out there in the world, a lot of things vying for your attention. But we did see this kind of void in the market of podcasts that are focused on reaching one more person and helping people navigate life through one more complex situation. And so that's why we're here today, starting this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all our cards out on the table. Like, we're Christians. We want one more person. We want all the people to come to faith in Christ, but that happens one heart at a time, one life at a time, one person at a time. Jesus, one of my favorite sections in the Bible, favorite chapters in the Bible is Luke chapter 15. And Jesus tells these one more stories. Yeah. They're three parables, and which is just kind of a story that, Jesus pretty much made up on the spot to use an everyday example to reveal an eternal truth. He tells a story about a lost sheep, a story about a lost coin, and a story about a lost son. And in all of them, the sheep and the coin story are really short, but it's, the guy loses a sheep, a shepherd, and he goes out and he leaves the 99 to go find the one, and he celebrates because he finds that one. And then a lady loses a coin, and she sweeps under the couch and everything, and she finds the coin. She tells all her friends, I finally found it, because everybody knew she was frustrated because she couldn't find it and upset. And then the last story is kind of this really long story. We call it the story of the prodigal son, but it's about, this father who has a heart for this one son who kind of goes off the deep end. But the father never forgets him, and it's a story of him coming home and still finding a home. And so that's our heart. And so maybe you're the one more out there. Maybe there's a one more you want to share this with. We're going to kind of take that attitude of, hey, how can we connect with maybe one more with content that's maybe different than what churches or people might talk about on stages.
Yeah. And, we're pastors at Mountaintop Church in Birmingham, Alabama, but this is not a podcast necessarily just for members of Mountaintop. And we want this podcast to be something that reaches one more person, no matter where you're at and no matter what you're walking through in life, and hopefully helps you to navigate, what's going on in the world and what's going on in your personal context. And so we hope to be a tool for you in that way. And we're gonna have one more conversation on here, on episodes that bring clarity instead of confusion. We're seeking to, share one more story that remind us that God is still moving in our world. We're going to have times where we are helping to equip you to take one more step toward moving deeper in your journey with Jesus. And and one more invitation for you to ask us questions about things that you've been struggling with or that are going on in your life that you need clarity about, because we just believe that God always has space for one more. And so we want to make that space on this podcast.
And the great thing about the internet is you can listen from wherever.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be all around the world. And I'm really excited because I think this is a way to connect with one more in a unique way. And so maybe this is an opportunity to share this content with a friend, or people who are like, I'm not sure about going to church, but I might listen to a podcast if it's a topic that I'm interested in. I think in the coming months ahead, we're going to have some topics you're probably interested in. So.
Yeah. And so we're going to be releasing episodes twice a month, and those episodes are going to come from really 4 different types of categories. And so we're going to have episodes that are about one more story of life change. Like I said, we're going to have episodes that are one more question answered, where we take questions from the audience and answer those. We're going to have one more complex conversation where we wade into difficult issues and try to approach those biblically and practically. And then one more step of faith where we seek to equip you to follow Jesus more deeply in your life. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of what those episodes are going to look like.
Yeah.
And so with One More Life Change, we just really want people to know that everyone has a story, and that story matters. Yeah. And maybe God can use that story to inspire one more person out there to take a similar step.
Yeah. The thing I love about stories is, you can't argue with someone's testimony. I mean, someone's story is their story. And oftentimes we read stories in the Bible and these characters of the faith that are centuries old. Mm-hmm. It's not quite as easily relatable as someone in our world. And so we're just going to hear from some incredible people who have been moved and touched by God and are continuing to grow. And really, the story is that they're normal people, but God's done incredible things in them. So I think what we hear in people's stories is like, oh, well, that reminds me a whole lot about mine. Yeah.
It's an opportunity for us to be reminded that God is still moving and that we were all the one once, right? Mm-hmm. And that Jesus changed our lives, and we want to share that with everyone. And then we'll do episodes that are one more question answered, where, like I said, we'll take questions from you. And if you already have some questions, we actually already have received some questions. And if you have questions that you want to submit, you can do that at ask us at onemorepodcast.org. And as we get those, we'll start answering them on those episodes.
Yeah. We shouldn't be afraid of questions.
No.
And one of the things you said is like Christians shouldn't be afraid to be curious. We should be curious. We should want to know why. When we're kids, we ask that question a million times. If you've had little kids, yes. Well, why? But mom, but dad, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask why. And so that's part of it. And for years, it feels like in Christian circles, people have been afraid to ask, well, you can't ask a question about that.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't ask about that. Or you can't talk about that. And so that just doesn't seem like the spirit of Jesus and the posture of Jesus. I think if you're sitting around with Jesus, you would feel like, I can ask this guy anything.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, like when he was on earth, one of the ways that we see him conducting himself is he asks more questions than he answers.
Yes.
And so, but for some reason, the church, the Big C church has been a little bit allergic to doubt. Right, and they think that if you're questioning, then something's wrong with your faith, and I think we're just trying to embrace a spirit of curiosity, and helping people, wrestle with those questions and wrestle with that doubt.
Yeah. So especially if you are, anybody can ask any question, but if you've been kind of skeptical of the church, you've had some doubt about God, maybe you don't even consider yourself a person of faith.
Yeah,
like. We want your questions. Now, be forewarned. It's possible that our answer will be, I don't know. Because I think Christians need to be able to say, "Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I'm still learning that," or I don't know that anybody can know that, or wow, that's just a great question, and we're just That's just something only God knows, and so I'm not afraid of that. But also, we just try to. We believe in the truth. The scriptures say, Jesus said, "The truth will set you free."
Right.
And so we believe the truth's found in Scripture. And then at the same time, there are still mysteries that the Scripture doesn't speak into, or we're just like, ooh, that's a good question. You know,
and ultimately, if we had answers for everything, then there would be no need for faith.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're really excited about those episodes where we'll take your questions and try our best to answer them. And sometimes maybe we'll get a question and it'll be like, I don't know if the two of us can answer it, but we might know somebody who might have an answer, might bring them onto the podcast and help us answer that question.
So you might see episodes that we spend the whole episode answering one question.
Yep.
And we might have episodes where we just kind of shotgun. We got 4 or 5 that we're answered. Because some of them might be short, but it's like, oh, it's a good question. Yeah. It just might be a 2-sentence answer.
Yeah. All right, so the next category is complex conversations, and this is the one that I probably am entering into with the most hesitation. Because
Really?
Yeah, because I certainly don't want to end up viral on the internet for something controversial I've said. But we do feel here at Mountaintop that it is our duty as a church to wade into complex conversations, and so we want to bring that spirit onto One More Podcast and really deal with some tough issues.
Yeah, just embrace the virality. We will probably say some things that you don't agree with. We may not agree with each other.
That's true. We are different people.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is so important, and this really goes into this idea like One More Podcast, is sometimes it feels like there's kind of an echo chamber out in the world, especially in, can I just say, the evangelical church world?
Yeah.
And have a lot of respect for so many of the voices that are out there. But I do think that the world needs one more perspective, right? Like a perspective that is less divisive.
Yeah.
And I think our posture here is that we believe God is a uniter. And so now that doesn't mean we don't have truth with grace. That doesn't mean we don't disagree on a issue that maybe the world sees it one way but we think the scriptures see it a different way. But it's just not divisive. And our tone and our posture is just like, hey, we're for everyone. Mm-hmm. So how do we draw people in even when we're like, hey, we disagree on this issue, but we can still be friends and we can still be in dialogue. Yeah. And we're still going to grow and learn together. Or hey, we disagree, but man, that's not a primary issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, the posture currently, especially in our context in America, is this us against them type of posture, right? We operate in a world that's full of ors, right? You're either right or left, Republican, Democrat. You're either Christian or not Christian. And I think the posture that we really want to embrace here as we're trying to reach one more is we want to reach one more on every side of every issue. And so that means we have to take more of a posture of right? And seeking that unity and trying to have that dialogue that is far too often, especially in digital spaces, just something that we don't do. Yeah. We surround ourselves with people who have the same opinions as us, and we don't allow space for nuance. And so the complex conversation episodes are going to give us a space to have some nuance.
Yeah, and there's a reason that word complex is in there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so one of my pet peeves, and I tell my boys this all the time because my boys are opinionated like I am, is be careful about having strong opinions about complex issues. And what I see happening in the world is that we're really good at forming strong opinions, and we do not recognize, or we just fail to acknowledge that, man, that issue's really complex.
Yeah.
And it's almost situation by situation, or there are not one or two sides to it. It is multifaceted, and there's a lot of issues, and culture influences it, and family systems influence it, and just like life is complicated and we want easy answers. And I just think we ought not be. So we just want to embrace the complexity.
Yeah, and I think, far too often we can make an issue about the issue and miss the people in the process. And so one of the ways that we want to equip you in One More Podcast is to help you see that there are people behind those issues.
Yes.
And to have the empathy to say that, hey, I might be biased about this particular thing because of my past or the way that I was raised or my experiences in life. And maybe that person's experiences are different than mine. And so could I just pause for a second to have enough curiosity to I wonder why they believe what they believe.
Yes.
And I think that'll make us better.
Yeah.
And certainly more like Jesus.
Yes.
Right, who operated with that sort of empathy. And so that's the heart behind those episodes. And then finally, we'll have episodes that we're calling One More Step of Faith. And these will cover anything from practical discipleship tools that we use in our personal discipleship journeys. Again, we might bring in people from Mountaintop staff or other places, other relationships we have to talk about some practical discipleship tools that they might know about and can share with us. And then also maybe just some like theological discussion about something in the Bible that's, we wouldn't do a sermon series on that necessarily in our church, but we have this podcast, and so let's spend an episode talking about this kind of niche theological issue. Yeah.
And like even one of our Q&As, one of our questions might actually end up being in like one of those, right? Somebody's got a question about something. We're like, that's actually one more step of faith.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is we've never arrived. So we all have a step of faith to take and continue taking. And we never have it all figured out. There's nobody that's got it all figured out.
Yeah. There's never going to come a time in your journey of following Jesus where you're going to run out of steps. There's always going to be one more step, right, of growing with Him. And so, and certainly as I've grown with Jesus since I've been walking with Him since I was 7 years old, I tell my wife this most weeks. I wake up or I go to bed at night, and I have found a whole nother list of ways that I need Jesus in my life.
Yeah.
And He continues to reveal that sin. And so we're all on that journey together. And so these episodes about One More Step of Faith are an opportunity for us to continue taking that journey together.
Yes.
So that is what this podcast is going to look like. And ultimately, we've gone with the title One More Podcast because we believe that you matter. You are the one more. And so this podcast is for you, and it's for everyone. There are 8 billion people on this earth, and so many of them need to hear the good news that God is for them. And so this podcast is for everyone from all walks of life. And possibly you have one more in your life, someone who might benefit from this content. We would love for you to share this podcast with them so that maybe they could take one more step in their faith as well.
Yeah, this is one more opportunity to maybe share with somebody that you've been trying to impact and influence, or you've been having some conversations with, and it's one more opportunity to say, hey, this is a different kind of faith conversation, and that they might be interested in. So maybe you're one of those that's being invited into this conversation. And you're here because you matter not only to God, you matter to that person that invited you to listen to it. So we really appreciate you listening. It's going to get fun. It's going to get fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the journey and can't wait to see what's ahead on One More Podcast.
Hey, thanks for listening today. Next time on the One More Podcast, we are going to get into our very first complex conversations, and we're going to talk about something that I love, and you might love it too. We're going to talk about God and sports. Take a listen to a little sneak preview.
I love sports. I love going to games, but we do have to protect, I think, in our hearts against this temptation to make an idol out of it. And I think sports make an awful god. And I can say that because my team stinks a lot. And so they let me down very often.
And God doesn't stink.
And God doesn't stink. He didn't let me down ever.
Yeah.
And so we do have to guard against that idolatry, right? I came across this. There's really 3 questions to guard against the problem of fandom, to test whether or not your fandom is kind of verging on idolatry.
That's it for today's episode of One More Podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. If this conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or made you think, do us a favor. Subscribe, leave a quick review, and share this episode with a friend. Seriously, sharing it helps more people find the kind of conversations we all need. And hey, if you've got questions you want us to tackle in a future episode, send them to askus@onemorepodcast.org. We'll see you next time for one more conversation about what matters.